Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. And once again to remind you that if you enjoyed my videos and want to see them in your feed every day and you haven't subscribed, it's just as easy as clicking that subscribe button and that's it. Now let's get started with today's story. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user Engage Excitement. Me, 24 female with my new fiance, 24 male, announced an engagement after dating 3 years. Not sure how to deal with unexpected family reaction. I just got engaged to Frank last week and we have been super excited and happy. Anyway, let me start with some backstory. We both live in Canada. Frank's entire family, both sides, are here as well. But aside from my mother, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, all of my relatives still live in the country my family emigrated from. I've met all his relatives and I'm quite close with them. They are all super nice. A number of relatives from both sides of my family met Frank when they came to visit and when they were here for my father's funeral. Frank has a bit of a language barrier with them, but he's always been polite and kind. Luckily, we were able to tell most of our families who live in Canada about our engagement in person before posting online. We got a really warm reaction from his parents as well as both sides of his family. It was all really lovely. Before posting on social media, I messaged my overseas relatives through group chats with the news and a picture of us smiling together with some champagne and the ring. From my paternal relatives, there was a big happy slew of congratulations and well wishes, and when I posted on Facebook, a few of them commented again with happy wishes. Before my dad passed away, he spent a lot of time in the hospital and he had made a point of saying that Frank should be allowed to come visit him as one of our own, even when my dad didn't really want visitors anymore. Frank hates hospitals, but he spent a lot of time visiting my dad. Seeing that my paternal relatives were accepting of Frank was a really nice reminder of how loving my dad was and how excited I think he would have been for us. This all leads to the issue at hand. The reaction I got from most of my maternal relatives, including my mother, really surprised and disturbed me. We saw her this past weekend and excitedly announced it to her. She seemed almost suspicious and asked us what our plans were for the future before giving two kinds of robotic handshakes and saying congratulations. Then later, she sat us down and asked how this would affect our educational futures. She even pulled me aside to talk to me about life insurance and wills, saying that whoever I marry, she wants to ensure a good life for me and her future grandchildren and not any step-grandkids. She outright warned against leaving money to Frank or sharing my resources with him because what if you die and he remarries and has kids with the new wife? She'll spend all the money and he won't care about your kids. Oh, that's great advice, Mom. Basing decisions on obscure what-if situations. This isn't the first time she has basically coached me to assume everyone, including my future husband, is out to get me, and that I can't trust anyone except blood family. I find it ridiculous and really depressing. I told her in no uncertain terms that I knew exactly who I was going to marry, so she could lay off the hypothetical whoever I married talk. And furthermore, that he wasn't the type of person who would abandon our children just because I was dead. She insisted she was giving practical and realistic advice, so I just changed the subject. In the group chat for my maternal relatives, only 3 of them have responded. There are 9 people in the chat, including me. One cousin, Larry, sent a shocked emoji and an aunt said, "Most importantly, don't let it affect your studies." I wasn't sure how to even respond to that, so I just sent back with Frank's support, everything has been better in my life, including my studies. Larry then just said, "Oh really?" And I stopped responding after that, as I found their reactions really bizarre and hurtful. Another of my cousins, Dan, piped up to say that Frank's a lucky guy and congratulated us, which was nice and I thanked him. But after that, it's been radio silence for a whole day. I've messaged Dan privately to ask if I wrote or said something wrong and he had no idea. Sad face. I am super grateful for all the positive reactions we've gotten, both from Frank's family and my paternal relatives, as well as from our friends and community. But I can't help but feel really shaken by my mom's reaction and the response of my maternal relatives. I don't understand the fixation on my studies. Aside from the fact that I've already graduated from uni and have been actively applying to medical schools while working full-time, I have never been the type to worry about my academics. My GPA has always been around 3.9, and Frank is literally the most supportive person when it comes to my schooling. He took care of me during my undergrad thesis, helped proofread my medical applications, and has always celebrated my success. He takes great care of me and uplifts me so much. I don't know. I guess I wish I knew why they were reacting like this. I'm just floored, and I have no idea how to proceed with them being so weirdly hostile towards my engagement. I really thought they'd be excited because, well, that's how people generally react, right? What do I do? Well, Opie, you're absolutely right. That's how people should react when somebody that they love is happy because she's getting engaged or he's getting engaged. And apparently everybody believes that you guys are great together. He sounds like a great future husband or boyfriend at the moment. So your family's reaction, your maternal family's reaction, I'm calling projection. Now, in order to conclude that, I have to assume some things. Like, for example, that after your dad died, your mom felt a little bit unsafe. And the fact that you are apparently going to become a doctor who looks like is going to have a bright future, I think she's really invested in that. Particularly with that whole spiel about, blood family being important and not leaving anything to your husband and all that stuff, all those what-if situations that she thinks are practical, whatever. Yeah, all that stuff, just, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way and gives me the impression that your mom is just greedy and is banking on your future, that you're gonna take care of her and maybe the whole family. I don't know. That's an assumption. But still, what about you guys? What do you guys think? Did you get that weird feeling too, or am I way off? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Battle of Lisa says, this is a good old-fashioned projection. It sounds like you were an investment child with your success, a direct connection to mom and maternal family. Who even talks about the potential death of their own kid and fear of where the money is going to go? Really, who does that? Your family feels threatened at the idea of you creating your own nuclear family and taking your future earnings away from them. And Opie responds, God, that's depressing. Sad face. Michael Farabia 17 says, it sounds like your family is super focused on climbing the economic ladder and they're worried that you getting married or possibly just marrying Frank is going to mess that up for them. From what you have written, it sounds like they are way out of line on this. Do you at least take their feedback seriously? Ask yourself if you and Frank share the same life goals on money and career and family. If you do share the same goals, then go ahead and be happily married together. If not, you should pause to talk about how that might impact your lives together to see if it's something you can work with. And Opie responds, quote, ask yourself if you and Frank share the same life goals on money and career and family, end quote. We do! Smiley face. Coffee. Just by dint of the careers we want. I will probably end up being the one who earns more and works longer hours, and he will likely end up doing more of the child rearing at home. We both really want to have at least 2 kids once our finances and location, we may have to move around a bit for my education, are in a reasonable place, looking at maybe 5-ish years down the line. Having endless wealth isn't important to either of us, but we do want to make sure we can provide a stable home for our kids and dogs. I have named all 3 of our hypothetical dogs after breakfast food. Icy Wheel says, quote, affect your educational futures, end quote. What exactly is she referring to here? Are the 2 of you students now? If so, how much longer will it be until you finish? Something must have happened with a relative on your mom's side that resulted in stepkids they don't like. Ask your cousin Dan for details. And Opie responds, I'm not currently in school. I graduated a couple of years ago and I've been applying for med schools. I hear back in the next few weeks about admissions. He's got a year left on his bachelor's in business administration. I know there have been a couple of divorces, one aunt, one uncle, but the majority have been long marriages, and my new step-aunt is super nice. If there have been evil stepmoms, I've never heard of it, and it seems so weird to jump to it immediately. Additional information from OP's comments. My mom is from an Asian culture. It's not like we're old money or anything close to that though. My maternal grandparents raised all their kids in poverty. They were originally going to give away my mom, the youngest, because they had too many children. My aunts and uncles have done fairly well for themselves throughout their lives and are financially stable as far as I'm aware. My cousins are all 2 to 3 decades older than me, and they run the gamut from something high up at a finance firm, Larry, to clinical research scientist, Dan, to hopeless gambling addict and lots in between. There's like at least 10 cousins on that side. As for Frank, he's currently finishing up a bachelor's in business administration and planning on going into education. We know teaching's not a money-making career, but it's way more important to us that he does something he's passionate about. And he's good at it too. Endless patience, that one. I suppose it's possible they feel he's not conventionally ambitious enough, though honestly, none of them really know him that well just because of the distance and language barrier. But I think he's ambitious in all the right ways. Alright, well I guess I wasn't the only one that had that weird feeling that the family was more interested in what OP could generate monetarily than OP's happiness. And with all of OP's responses and the additional information, we get that Frank is an awesome guy and OP and him are apparently on the same page in all the important topics and are ready to take that big step. So it's time that we move on to the update to see what happened next, but before that, if you're enjoying this video and of my content in general, please go ahead and click that like button and also subscribe if you haven't done so far. Now let's move on with the update. Hi everyone, I posted my original issue a little while ago. Long story short, I got engaged, and when I announced it to my mom and maternal relatives, I got a really cold reception. I posted basically because I didn't know how to process it. I'm still kind of in disbelief, but I actually had a chance to chat with one of my maternal aunts. I thought she called me and I called her back. It turns out it was a butt dial, but since I had her on the line, I decided to ask her what her perspective was. I won't go into the details of the conversation, but essentially it seems to boil down to a few things. First, because of the distance and language barrier, none of them really know Frank very well, so they mostly just go off what they're told about him. It seems that my mom has been talking about him in unflattering ways and just overall painting him as not good enough. One weird thing that they seem to have fixated on is that he doesn't have a full driver's license. I don't either. I have a new driver's license, he has a learner's. Neither of us has a car and public transit is decent enough in our city, so getting a full license hasn't really been a top priority. It seems though that between that and him not being in the workforce full time yet, because, you know, he's still in school, even though they've been told about his part-time job, my mom doesn't think very highly of his ability to provide and disapproves despite saying to my face that she will just love whoever I love. They see only my mom's disapproval and nothing of how hard he works, how sweet he is, how creative, funny, etc. So if I am to change their minds, I'm already starting on the back foot and running damage control. Second, they seem to think I'm still a baby. My aunt was saying how I'm still young and all. I pointed out that I was turning 25 this year. On the young end for engagement, sure, but by no means a child. And she actually did a double take when she realized that. She also asked about a lot of things. What we plan for the future, if we talked about having kids, what sort of lifestyle we want. Basic ass crap that anyone with half a brain of foresight would talk about before an engagement. Well, clearly OP hasn't seen any of my other videos. So yeah, another reason to subscribe. I obviously had answers for all the things she asked, and she almost seemed surprised that I never once had to say, we've never talked about that, or I don't know. She ended up saying that I'm a grown person who can make her own decisions and that she just wishes me well. We also talked a bit about my mom and kind of ended the conversation there. It's been a few days now, and at the end of it all, I think I'm just angry and sad. I know neither Frank nor I are at our life goals yet, and we still have plenty of growing to do. But I just feel super disrespected and underestimated. I'm pissed that my mom would claim just to want me to be happy and that she'd love whoever I love, and then turn around and talk crap about the man I love and who has been an incredibly supportive partner to me. She keeps saying that she wants a better relationship with me, but honestly, I'm starting to see that she doesn't, not really. She wants a better relationship with who she wants me to be, not who I actually am. And to be fair, I guess I feel the same way. I would love a better relationship with my mom. If my mom were more genuinely supportive and less judgmental and didn't think her perspective is the objective truth quite so much. Whatever, I'm still going to get married and I'm super happy about that. My future husband is a swell guy who makes me really happy. If anyone can't bring themselves to feel genuinely happy for us, they can feel free to F right off, my mom included. Okay, I guess in the end I was off. It wasn't about that, it was just that the mom doesn't like Frank, who sounds like a really cool guy, and OP really loves him, and yeah, like you say OP, whatever, you're still getting married to Frank, I'm sure you guys will be happy, and your mom can F right off if she doesn't want to be in the happy boat. So on that note, here's wishing you and Frank the best in the future OP. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user DragonFireKitten. Tell me to work when I'm not on the clock and just happen to be in the building? How about instead I organize the staff into a low-key resistance that lasts years after I left? I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss. Everyone got along great, except for one of the department heads. Let's call them B. For reasons unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to B, and in the wake, the majority of the staff quit within months, leaving us understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out and assume that B would hire people to fill the empty positions. They didn't. We went from a 15-person trade shop down to a 5-person within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and there were many, was B's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and plan ahead. While I worked there, the 2 years with boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I'd come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee and small talk with my co-workers, and shoot the crap with my boss. But we never really started work until everyone's scheduled start time. When B took over, the moment you stepped into the shop, B immediately started to bark orders at you regardless of whether you were in the building 15 to 20 minutes early. Mostly, it's because B was in a rush to get something done they just remembered. When I, the now most senior person left at the shop from the old regime, would point out we technically weren't on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes, and I wanted to make coffee, B would just snap at you, telling me to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So, I started to wait in my car, bring in my coffee from home, and would only walk in the door at the last minute. Technically, I was never late to work and was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if B caught on, but the rest of my staff did and followed suit, since I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my co-workers would still often show up early to work, but all wait in the vehicles. At some point, one of them had a minivan and we all parted in there, and go in as a group. Anytime a new person joined because someone walked off, we would also warn them of what would happen. It's been several years since I worked there, and I do not know any of the current staff besides B. I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time that the shop would open and looked over into the parking lot in front of the shop. Like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. I may not work there, but it's nice to see my resistance still exists. OP's edit. For those asking why I just didn't clock in early and get overtime, it's simply because I didn't want to. I deliberately arrived to work early so that I can get into the correct headspace to deal with B. and I want to hang out with the staff for a few minutes before I have to deal with the daily crap show. At that point, I had just put to end the 10 to 11 hour work days I was putting in to deal with cleaning up B's mess. I was willing to help out since I felt bad that half the staff left and they just needed the help. I also like money. But after the 6+ months of the same mistakes happening with no effort on B's part, even to acknowledge there are issues, I burnt out. So I informed B that I was only working 8-hour days and that I would not come in early or stay late. I only lasted another few months before I found another shop. I'm a vindictive person and at this point I was enjoying watching the world burn around B. Well, OP, you just abided by your time and your contract. You shouldn't be forced to work outside of your hours unless you get paid. So good for you, OP, and thank you for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.